Hey, welcome to another episode of the Two Photo Nuts, and I've been told to stop clapping my fingers and banging things, so I will start that now. I'm Bob.
I'm Clinton.
And we're here for another episode, and what are we discussing?
Pre versus post.
I figured you were going to say something like, I don't know.
I did that last week.
Yeah, I did that last week, okay. Pre versus post. So what do I mean by pre versus post? I did a blog last week, and the blog came from an idea from the Arcanum I'm a member of, and question one, when is more too much? And it got me thinking. So pre, as in before you click the shutter, post, as in after the shutter has been done and we're going to put it into some sort of software. So it also can be considered, a lot of guys like JPEG versus RAW, we've done that one.
Yep,
but that's not really what I wanted to talk about. So before we click the shutter, there's all sorts of things that we used to do. I still do. Some of us still do. So if you're shooting in, Clinton shoots in JPEG, I believe?
Both, actually.
Okay. So I never shoot in JPEG. Very seldom do I ever shoot in JPEG. But if you don't want to do any post-processing, there are certain things you have to do to be able to keep up and make your images stand out. So let's discuss some of that one. Let's discuss what's available in the camera, because everybody I'm watching, presuming, has a camera.
Hopefully.
So, good point, maybe they're learning. What's available in the camera for things to do before we click the shutter? We have all sorts of menu items. First point, if you're going to shoot in JPEG, in the menu you can use natural, you can use
Vivid, monochrome,
neutral. There are custom settings.
There's about two more. I don't remember where they were.
I've never seen those in my menu.
Anyway,
but anyways, the point is that the camera is going to convert that to a JPEG for you.
And it'll also help in RAW as well.
Well, it shows you the image on the back, but a RAW image is not going to convert. It doesn't. It doesn't help. Your RAW image comes out as RAW, and when you put it in your processing, it's going to do whatever you require at that particular time. That's why a lot of times, but that's another, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just look at the camera. So the camera itself, if you're going to shoot in JPEG, you have functions like that.
Yeah.
But other functions, as in this camera doesn't do it. There's probably Canon cameras that'll go out there and do that. I haven't got one. You can do multiple exposures.
Yep.
And in the Nikon, because I was helping somebody the other day, that's a RAW image that they get out with a multiple exposure. So you can do multiple exposure. I do multiple exposures. I will post-process it. That's the way I do it. But the cameras we were using, the Nikon, in particular, because I was looking at that the other day, will do up to 7 multiple exposures. So if you want to expose, doing a landscape, you want to expose for the sky and expose for the ground, the camera will put that information together for you and give you a half decent.
Active delighting on the Nikon as well.
Okay, good point. Again, you're the Nikon guy. I'm kind of like the Canon guy. Very shortly be the Sony guy. So there are those things that you can do as well to do corrections in the camera. But even before we get to that, there are even other things we can do. We can apply filters.
Yeah.
We have a whole complete set of filters here. So we have polarizers.
Neutral density.
Yep.
UV. You can even add color. You've got your greens, your reds, your oranges.
Well, you've got some nifty polarizers because you've got a regular polarizer, but you've got the blue-gold polarizer.
They're expensive.
But they can assist you in making sure everything is right in camera if you're going to shoot in JPEG. So to me, the option here is if you're going to shoot in JPEG, then you're going to have to go out and purchase filters to help you along. So back in 35 millimeter days, a lot of guys didn't develop their own film. So to get that particular exposure correct, you had to add things to the camera.
Correct.
Okay, so is that cheating?
No, and it's actually still very relevant now. If you want to do a prolonged exposure in broad daylight, you should be using a polarizer anyway to drop you down those few stops.
Well, that's another point. So if you want to do long exposures, I was out doing starscapes the other day. I was out doing cloudscapes as well. I use a big stopper, which is a 10-stop filter, basically a welding glass stuck in front of the lens. It allows me to take a longer exposure. So I'll go into a minute, 2-minute exposure. But those are things I can do prior to. I just find it, but I can still do things like that in Photoshop. But don't go there at the moment. We're not into post-process yet. So those are things that if you're going to shoot in JPEG and you want to be able to get things right in the camera with the JPEG function, then the pre-processing using your filters is going to be one of the best ways. Thoughts? What else do you do? I know, like, something I never thought of until I was talking to you. I would never use two polarizers.
I stack polarizers quite regularly just because there's a certain look I'm going for or a certain situation. I do a lot of prolonged exposures, and I want that 15, 20-second exposure on a beautiful sunny day. One, polarizer, I'm still getting too much washout. Two, I find I get about where I want to be, and then if I'm feeling adventurous enough, I will downgrade a little bit more in post-processing.
There we go. So any other thoughts on post? Or pre-processing?
I always treat pre-processing like I'm shooting film. I have one chance to get the shot I want, so I make sure I'm positioned correctly. I make sure my shutter speed and aperture are the way I want them before I even hit the trigger.
Yeah. Well, some of the other things we haven't talked about, like cameras nowadays, they can do panoramics. I don't have a panoramic function on my gear. It's a little older. Some of the cameras coming out now, you can actually shoot a panoramic. It will stitch it together for you in the camera.
And Sony's really good for that, actually. They've got one of the better panels in the market right now.
Yeah, so that's one way. I also find what I'm experimenting with right now is I'm doing video, but my video clip I can actually convert into a panoramic in post-processing.
Yeah.
So I'm experimenting with that at this particular time. So there is a lot of things you can do. If you want to shoot JPEG, I'll admit it, at one time it was like I shot JPEG and I got off and got on RAW because I like my post-processing. But if you're one of the ones that wants to shoot in JPEG, doesn't want to spend, I'm going to say, a little bit of time. Some people spend, like me, hours fixing images, correcting images.
That's wrong.
Well, yeah, hang on. We'll discuss that in a minute. It's not wrong. So that's one of the ways, if you want to shoot JPEG, those are the things you have to do. So you're going to have to do it before you click the shutter.
Correct.
All right. So let's move on to post-processing.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
So post-processing is where we're going to take the image. 9 times out of 10, when you're post-processing, there is a difference between post-processing a JPEG and a RAW file. I shoot in RAW. I can pull it into my computer. I can use Lightroom or Photoshop or On1 software and make corrections to this. So I can, a lot of times, I will correct white balance. I can pull it, and those are, because a white balance is a certain Kelvin.
Correct.
So I can change that. It's a lot easier to do it on RAW than there is in JPEG, but there are tricks for doing that as well.
And the other thing with shooting RAW in Photoshop, you can actually even attack the RGB spectrum with quite a bit of precision.
Well, yeah. Well, that's exactly it. So I can, you've got contrast, you've got your highlights, you've got your shadows you can start playing with. And those items where I can bring out a better image. I can sharpen my image, as I see fit, not as the camera is not making those decisions for me. I still have that option. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I still have those options of making sure that I get as much done in camera as I want. So for instance, one of the things, have you ever shot infrared?
No.
Okay, so we've got to get you out doing infrared. So how do you convert an infrared? Because basically I'm putting a filter. I'm putting a filter in front of my camera that again is black and is using a different light spectrum to take images. So my green tree is going to show white when I convert it. But the infrared comes in as a totally red picture. So basically, I end up swapping my blue and my red channels around to get that type of fine art look.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how I get it. But you can't do that in camera.
No.
You have to do it in post. When I use a big stopper, I believe, if you check with the Lee's website, it's at 10,000 Kelvin, so it's right at the upper end.
Yeah.
So the white balance on that is going to be out. So then when I pull it into my software, I will correct the white balance.
Dial it into what you actually saw.
Yeah, that's exactly it, to bring it back. So those are things. But here's another question for you. Once we started doing post-processing, how do you, who's not doing post-processing, fix dust spots?
I don't have dust spots.
Yeah, bull. Everybody's going to end up with dust spots. If you shoot a whole wedding and you've got dust or pick up dust or dirt on your sensor or your lens, how are you going to clean it?
I clean my sensor.
Well, you have to clean it before you go for a shoot.
Yeah?
Yeah, well,
You've seen my kit.
well, I've seen your kit. I've seen your thumbprints all over your lens.
You've also seen my...
But those are things like you can't clean dust spots after you've taken the image if you're not going to do post-processing.
No, but do you see my little bzz, bzz, bzz thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do clean my
Is
sensor.
that your electric razor?
No, my invisible dust.
Well, we all clean our sensor. I know with my other camera, it shakes the sensor. I haven't had to clean mine for a while. The only things that I have to worry about dust for is on the lenses. So I will clean my lenses, but the sensor I haven't touched. But even though if you're out shooting, let's say you're out shooting in shooting whales, and there's water splashing up, and you got water on your lens, and you don't notice. There's a whole series of images gone.
How do you not notice?
You're in the moment. You're in the zone. Just like last week when you came in, you were tired now. During the whole show. Those are things you have to be aware of. There are times when you cannot move an object. Do you clean prior to taking your picture? Yeah. Yeah. So do I. I like to clean. The less time I have to spend removing objects that are in my way, but there are times when I can't get rid of an object.
I have a dedicated handheld vacuum for my camera bag.
Well, there we go. But there may be a couple of branches sticking in from the side that
Click,
don't need to
click.
be there.
I also have-
Now you're going to climb a tree? You're going
When
to carry
was
a
it-
ladder with you and climb a tree to get rid of them?
Have you met me?
I haven't been shooting with him, and I'm going to see what, I thought I carried enough gear. You're going to walk around with a ladder?
And pruning shears,
There-
bear spray, other things, yes.
Well, I can understand that, but there are times when you're out shooting waterfalls and there's a log in the way, and things like this that are...
You don't carry a chainsaw?
No. Here we go. What's that noise? Oh, this is Clinton cutting down a tree to take a picture. But those are things that you have to take into account, Those things I can clean up in Photoshop. Photoshop may have a bad rap. You take a picture of one person and you take a picture of a background and overlay it and people go, oh, isn't that nice?
Oh, National Enquirer. Got it.
Yeah, well, they've been doing it magazines have been doing this for years.
They have.
And
you can't take them seriously anymore.
So that's my point. Okay, so if a magazine does it, do you cancel your subscription?
I did.
Oh, look, she's in Photoshop. They're canceled. They're off my list. Ba-ding! Yeah. Adam Ansel, how many hours would he spend in the darkroom? No but.
Yeah, there's a...
No but on that one. He would spend hours in the darkroom dodging and burning.
But he's an artist. If you're taking a photo for a magazine, you're trying to capture an image for a historical standpoint.
Depends actually on the use of the image. So if you're looking at, the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated, you're looking at a lot of these diet magazines and things like that. Sure. If you're doing photojournalism, I would agree. We want to capture what was there at that particular time. In fact, if you search the internet, you'll find people who have photographers that have been laid off, fired, removed from their position because they modified the image. And that totally becomes the magazine's responsibility and how they want to present it. There are magazines that are going to Photoshop things like that. There was, I don't know if it's true, there was a YouTube video where there was a picture of a girl. And the guy said, done in Photoshop. And he showed you how he did it, and it actually peeled it all back, and it actually was a piece of pizza. Have you seen that one?
No.
It was actually a piece of pizza. It shaped it all into a girl. I was like, wow, that was quite impressive. Overkill, certainly an overkill.
And way too much time on your hands. But.
Yeah, but it proved a point. There are people out there that are using their iPhones to do photo shoots with, but they're still using their studio equipment.
I just died a little bit inside.
Well, you can see those again. Oh, look, you can actually use your iPhone to do these shoots, but he's still using his full studio equipment.
That hurts
You
my
remember
head.
in the old days when people used, again, 35 millimeter film, they would put Vaseline on the bottom of a UV filter to blur the bottom.
I remember that, yeah.
Is that not manipulating the scene?
It is.
So it kind of makes you think.
It does.
It kind of makes you think. So pre, post, both?
It depends on what you're trying to do. One of my biggest gripes with post-processing is the amount of hours people put into one image. Like if you've got to, like for me, if you've got to spend 2, 3, 4 hours working on one image, then you made a mistake in the pre-shoot.
Well, yes and no. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to disallow that. I will do macro and I will do stacking. Case in point, I was out the other night, I did light painting and starscapes. So I took 30 pictures. So I did light painting, it was a 5-minute exposure of the subject, the trucks. And then I spent an hour and a bit going click 3-minute exposures. So I spent almost an hour and a half out there taking pictures. And then I went home and put it all together in Photoshop, so I probably spent another hour and a half, 2 hours on that.
That's an entirely different kettle of fish, though.
Why is that a different kettle of fish?
Because I'm talking
Why
about...
is a salmon changing?
Well, we're going from a salmon to a coho. Anyway, when you're dealing with one image compared to a stack of images, I will grant you would take more time to build what you're trying to do. But one image at one time in Photoshop, how long should that take you? If you're not stacking, if you're just doing one simple...
Well, a lot of images for me will never make it to Photoshop. I will use the sliders in Lightroom, so I don't have to go very far. So with a little bit of knowledge and in Lightroom, I can take maybe 5-10 minutes, but here's the kicker. If I've got a series of photos that I've shot, let's say 15 or 20, and I make my adjustments to one image, and it takes me 5 or 10 minutes, I can copy all those adjustments to the rest of those images and get all of them done in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that you can actually do. And if I'm shooting a series of images and my dust spots are all in the same spot, and I correct the one image in Lightroom, I can copy that removal of the dust spots to all those images for that whole shoot. So that's the beauty of part of the post-processing side, which is easy to do. When I import into Lightroom, I can add all the adjustments that I normally use. So I can save presets, and when I pull those images in, I can automatically add those presets to all those images. So where you may shoot a wedding, let's say, and you've got 1,000 images,
Yeah.
I can pull them in and I can add those presets.
And then instead of spending 15 minutes per image, you spend 15 minutes on one, mask it across, and you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
And then just do a 3-4 second tweak.
Yeah.
And this is, Photoshop is a great tool, but I'm a strong believer that you get as close as you can in pre, and then do your final corrections in post. It shouldn't take more than 4 or 5 minutes an image. And that's kind of what, I really don't like seeing people take a horrible image and spend 2 hours in Photoshop to make it an okay image.
Well, no, and I kind of agree with that. For me, the way my workflow is, I capture it as best as I can within the camera, and I think you're under that impression as well. Capture it the best I can in the camera, and then I amplify or bring out the things that I want to grab the viewer's attention.
Correct.
There are certain functions I can't do in the camera. I can't vignette in the camera. Well, actually, no. You can.
To a degree, it's not exactly...
To a degree, and not exactly where I always want all these things. So I have to do it in post. But you're right. I don't have... Some images, I went out and I shot waterfalls 2 weeks ago. I processed them all in Lightroom. I had probably 30 images. It probably took me less than half an hour to process all these, with some light adjustments. So I add clarity to some areas. I dodge some areas, sort of idea. So you don't have to spend a lot of time. But I'm like you, get as much as you can done in the camera. I have all sorts of filters that I use.
Yeah.
So we're doing a photo walk coming up here soon. This show may not make it on before we do the photo walk. But I carry these filters. I will get as much as I can done in camera, and then there are times where my mind goes, okay, I can't do this, what I want in camera. I'll take multiple exposures and I'll put it together in post-processing.
And that's how that should be.
That's the way I work. So with that, any other final words?
I will say that since I met you, I've gotten a little bit more friendly to post-processing. When I first met him, I was a die-hard, do not post-process. Now I'm more like, okay, I accept its place in photography.
I accept its place in photography. Oh. What's that Red Green used to say? I'm a man, I can change if I have to. I'm a photographer, I hang out with Bob, I can change if I have to. So those are the things that when you're out shooting, you have to be cognizant of. Again, starscapes, I can't get them in one shot. I have to work fairly diligently at it. So I do multiple pictures. Painting with light, longer exposures, require a little bit more work, in Photoshop. But on that section of that, the camera also does noise reduction on long exposures. Some of them do. Mine does, the Canon does.
Mine does as well.
Yeah, okay, so a lot of times to keep the noise down, I will do a long exposure. It'll take, let's say, a minute exposure. It'll do the noise reduction for me, which takes another minute to run through. So again, that can be done, and you can save it as a JPEG. So to wrap up, if you want to shoot JPEG, then you're going to need some way to manipulate the way the camera's taking the information in. If you're not going to shoot it in, JPEG's a little harder to work with. It can be done. But if you want to do post-processing, not limited to JPEG, but RAW as well, then you have more options after you take the shot. Correct?
Correct.
All right, so we got to go. I'm getting the old wrap-up signal here. We're past our minutes, but anyways, I'm surprised. Great show. Hopefully that helps. And want to thank Shaw, Clinton, me. Check out our website, twophotonuts.com, and we'll see you next time on the Two Photo Nuts, if things go well next week.
Yeah, have fun.
Bye.
Bye.